The right Khilafat movement. Is it the same given in your volume also? वही दिया ना, खिलाफत मूवमेंट ने दिया है ना. फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर आए, वही तो है नॉन कॉर्पोरेट. मैंने भी लिखा है ना, खिलाफत टाइम एनसीएम इज नॉन कॉर्पोरेशन, सीडीएम इज सिविल डिसोबीडियंस मूवमेंट. दिया उसने बनाया, मुझे उसे बनाना पड़ेगा. किसका है ना विकास. हाँ वो बच्चा अभी है. एक तो क्या है उसको वर्कआउट करता है, ये तो बहुत वर्कआउट करता है. ये कर टेंथ में अच्छा नहीं. ओके. Now when you look at this chapter, it is as different. Madhav, can you hear my voice clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have started with a new chapter in history. Put that heading, today's date, and write the meaning that I've already given. We understand only one thing. This. तो देखिए चले आराम से आजा. ये लोग एक एक करके आएंगे. उसे बाद में मैडम साइन करके उसको. Today's beginning itself is. Look at the Paris girl looking at you for waiting. When you look at this chapter as different from nationalism in Europe, and you will have a better connectivity. What is the meaning of that connectivity? 3G or 4G? 4G connectivity, because it has happened in India, and at least you know these leaders' names. Unlike the leaders that you have done, normally you don't try to connect. I always feel this chapter is more important as compared to what you have done. That is also quite important. But then here, bachas will understand what is all this. So now, when I use this word, First World War, we say it was between 1914 to 1918, correct? So what is good thing about this World War? That Indian soldiers, or I can say Indians, were fighting on whose front? On the British front. In fact, Britishers has promised Indians that if they support, they may consider the issue of what? Independence. Are you understanding what I am saying? Now that we are going to understand this chapter in detail, we say the first movement that you have to study is Khilafat. The word is saying Khilafat because it was the religious leader called Caliph. Correct? He was the religious head of Islamic community. Correct? And he was in a country called Turkey. Or if you say Turks, who was the ruler? Ottoman Turk. Correct? During the World War I, Britishers have defeated this kingdom. Who? Britishers. Correct? Once Britishers have defeated this kingdom, they did not recognize Caliph as the which head? All over the world. Like if you don't understand who is Caliph, Caliph or Khalifa, now you know at least Vatican City, where it is? It is in Rome, Italy. And whoever is the Pope and whoever is the church head is considered to be the religious head of the whole Christian community. If the government doesn't recognize him, all over the Christian community will get anger. Similar anger was against which ruler? British rulers, because they defeated which ruler? Ottoman Turks. What did they do? They did not recognize Caliph as the which head? Religious head. Now then in India, there were two brothers. We call them as Ali brothers. One was Muhammad Ali. Okay. And other was Shaukat Ali. So in fact, we call them as which brothers? Ali brothers. Correct? दोनों के नाम के पीछे अली है. they started this movement in India in support of which leader? Caliph. Who was he? He was a religious head of the Islamic community. Now then the INC takes this opportunity to bring the Muslims into INC. What is INC? Congress. Who established it? Nehru. AOU. Very good. In which year it was? 1885. Very good. He has done the revision work. So we always feel a British retired fellows establish an INC, and generally INC was influenced in those days by Hindu Mahasabha. So majority had the opinion, what the opinion? That it will be more supporting whom? Hindus, and less supportive to whom? To the Muslims. Majority. But then that was not the truth. But the Muslims cannot be convinced. Now Gandhiji had understood this nature of the Muslims. Either willingly or unwillingly, they are not becoming the member of whom? INC. When Gandhi analyzed the situation about this and two brothers fighting on their own, he in fact sent an invitation to whom? Muhammad and Shaukat Ali. That you fight for the rights of the Islamic leader, we extend an arm of support or a hand of support. Why don't you join with INC? If you join with INC, we can put a bigger pressure on whom? The British government. Since INC had a bigger umbrella of operation. So this is how we are going to explain the movement called Khilafat. Is it very clear? So it is started by whom? Muhammad and Shaukat Ali in India. But what is the scenario? That Britishers have defeated the Turkey ruler called Ottoman Turks, and he was considered to be the religious head. They did not recognize this person as the leader. So all over the world, the movement started, but in India started by two brothers called Ali brothers. And then INC gave a call for the Muslim community, especially these two people, to join hands with INC so that they can get the desired results, so that they can get a greater operation, so that they can get the greater advertisement for this work. So that is Khilafat movement. Absolutely clear. Then I will be explaining the establishment of INC. Now when I use the word INC, अच्छा काम करेंगे पहले Khilafat movement कर लेंगे, पक्का? हाँ. Let us get the volume and which page number it is? 39. Please, why don't you read? I didn't get my volume. Madhav, you pick up your UT volume.
Yes, sir.
Ah.
How the Congress sought to develop the national movement after the First World War? How different social groups have participated in the movement? While the Robert Satyagraha had been a widespread movement, it was still limited mostly to cities and towns. Mahatma Gandhi now felt the need to launch a more broad-based movement in India.
Underline the word broad-based. Now, how do I explain the meaning of the broad-based? Which will include many communities, which will include many more demands. वो तो उसका effect है ना. अभी देखो, you start a movement, your movement will be close to schools. Your movement will be close to your syllabus, close to exams, maybe etc. etc. You are starting a movement to save the earth. And you? I'm asking you. You can start. अभी बच्चा बोलेगा अपने आप को save नहीं कर सकते, मैं किधर कर? But there are some kids. If you remember that Greta Thunberg, is it? That 14-year-old girl. You remember? She was from which country? That also I forgot. Norway, is it? She was crying for the farmers of Indians when Indian farmers were protesting, and she was like, "Oh, my brothers in India, they are." So किसी ने पूछा उसको कभी इंडिया आई है क्या? No, I never come. You know where is India? No, I don't know. मतलब इतना वो sympathy दिखा रही है, but she doesn't know where is India and who are Indian farmers. But then she wanted some You understood? So here we try to say Gandhiji is making one attempt. What is that attempt? Let us make the INC a broad base. What is broad base? Let anyone and everyone be a part of it. Because when I try to make you weaker, I try to catch your weak points first. But if there are weaker points less and strong points are more, it's so easy for INC to pressurize whom? The British. So this is the main drastic change Mahatma Gandhi brought into Indian politics. Before the Gandhi's entry, how was Indian politics? It was only with the elite people. You understand? Elite, जो पढ़ा लिखा है, आएगा बैठेगा डिस्कस करेगा चाय वाय पिएगा फिर बोलेगा क्या करना है वंडरफुल अच्छा लगा आज का डिस्कशन और 10 दिन के बाद मिलते हैं निकल जाएंगे. And the common people were not at all connected. अभी मैं जाके आज common people से बोल रहा हूँ सर we have started a freedom movement. हाँ very good. And we are going to work. Very good, very good. वो बोलेगा अच्छा ठीक है हो गया मैं जाके अपना खेती में काम करूँ. उसको ऐसा नहीं लगता था कि I am also part of the program. But then Gandhiji made it one point. Employers, peasants, students, workers, women, है ना? Everyone wanted to be a part of it. It's like an English proverb saying, millions of candle lights were extinguished. As a candle lights, few of them become the bigger lights. They are the freedom fighters. But we can't count how many people have sacrificed their lives. उनका book कहीं भी history book में है क्या? Is it anybody remember them? But they have sacrificed. That's why today you and me are so free. It's like my history teacher told me, similar I am telling to you also. We have not fought for the freedom. तो तुरंत बचा होता नहीं ना कल भी मैंने वापस से झगड़ा किया इतना तो freedom मिलना चाहिए. मैंने बोला वो freedom नहीं बेटा, freedom from the British. अभी मेरा गलती नहीं है, मैं इतना late born हुआ तो मैं क्या? He or she has the answer for every question. But at least learn to respect. अभी क्या करने का? National anthem तो मैं खड़ा हो जाता ना अभी क्या? It is not standing up. It's something else. So here Gandhiji is making one valiant attempt. What is that attempt? Let every person be a part of it. Do not give a vent to the opponent. Who is the opponent here? Yes. So that they don't take the weak points first. So if I say the word broad-based, it's so simple to tell you. Every community must be working under the banner of. Let's proceed.
But he was certain that no such movement would be organized without bringing the students closer together. One way of doing this, he felt, was to take up the Khilafat issue.
Khilafat issue.
The First World War had ended with
Ottoman Turkey.
There were rumors that harsh peace treaty was going to be imposed.
Underline the word harsh peace treaties. ये सब points में लिखेंगे बाद में. आज लिखना मैं बंद कर देता हूँ जितना हो सके try करता हूँ.
Going to be imposed on the Ottoman Empire and spiritual head of the Islamic
Khalifa or Khalif. Underline spiritual leader. ये सब rumors ही था but nobody know what is going to happen.
When the Khalifa's temporary powers, Khilafat committee
Underline the Khilafat committee was formed.
Was formed in Bombay in March 1990. A young generation of Muslim leaders like the brothers Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali.
Underline, they are two brothers, also known as which brothers? Ali brothers.
Discussing with Mahatma Gandhi about the possibility of a united mass action on the issue.
Underline that mass united action. Next.
Gandhi saw this opportunity to bring Muslims under the umbrella of unified nation.
ये पॉइंट आपको आंसर में लिखने का अंडर द अम्ब्रेला ऑफ अ यूनिफाइड मूवमेंट. If I want to explain, I said the class of 10 CBSE Cooper करने. Only one boy comes. वो कभी-कभी आ गया, ये आ गया, बाकी लोग उधर जाने का नाम से. ये लड़कियां तो वैसे भी बोलती हैं आप माइनॉरिटी में नहीं जाएगा. But all people come together. You write a letter, sir, we are coming, sir. We don't want this nationalism. आपने नहीं पढ़ा है. Then I have to cancel. But one says, ठीक है ना, छोड़ दो, वैसे भी तो मैं नहीं आना. दूसरा बोलता है, आने दे, but मैंने लिखी. Look how the disunity. So if I want to say unity, one go, one voice, what is that? We don't want. है ना? अभी ICSE has gone for some drastic reduction in the portion, is it? अभी तक CBSE का कुछ हुआ नहीं है. Now देखो, हमारे साथ भी ऐसा होना. I remember the COVID नहीं हुआ है. अच्छा. And then I remember when board exam was cancelled, CBSE only cancelled the board exam first. Online भी नहीं रखा ना first COVID में. My ICSE slow, sorry, ये अन्याय है, ना वाला दुख क्या? एक महीने के बाद ICSE का भी cancel हुआ. Then they said now this. मतलब क्या मैं गिरा तो गिरा, but वो भी बाहर क्यों? वो भी गिरना चाहिए. Then only I am happy. So here these two brothers called Ali brothers putting their valiant attempt. What is that word valiant attempt? Trying to fight on their own. देखो हम लोग में एक अच्छी बात है इंडियंस में, कोई तो आएगा तो मैं जाऊंगा, कोई भी नहीं है, मैं अकेला कैसे जाऊं? अभी आप लोग ने ये स्टेटमेंट सुना है, अब तक हम लोग यही बोलते हैं, मैं क्यों जाने का, सब लोग आना चाहिए. Do you think Gandhi ji might have thought this line? We could have got independence. Single-handedly overthrew the British administration. Not single-handedly, there were many people. But did I not say Gandhi could have led a life of luxury? Gandhi could have easily had good friends with British people. But उन्होंने क्या बोला? I start whether you follow me or not. आप लोग कभी लाइफ में ऐसा कुछ काम किया है? Only have done it. Nobody have joined you. खाना खाते समय वो तो फैमिली भी खाते हैं ना साथ में. So it's so simple to tell you, you be a trendsetter. You know what is a trendsetter? जो आज तक आपका फैमिली में किसी ने नहीं किया वो मैं करेगा. हाँ सर, मैं इतना लपेट के पास. Like I remember Sachin Tendulkar, who not even completed his 10th standard, but he played for India. Mr. Tendulkar, when he was facing the bowlers like Wasim Akram and Waqar Yunus in those days, and I remember his interview. You were saying that when they were bowling bouncers and beamers at me, I hung my shoes, saying that आज के बाद मैं cricket नहीं खेलूंगा. But then the next day when he faced same bowlers, he battered them like anything. What does it show? The determination. Because what Mr. Tendulkar has achieved, not even a greatest scientist or other people might have achieved. But educationally he is less, but he has made his name for at least next 100 years. And anybody can forget him. I don't know whether you have watched cricket when he was playing. I remember any stadium he comes in, people will chant his name, and he was known as cricket's god. तो उसमें भी उसने उतना dedication दिया है. Correct? So here, although this Muhammad and Shaukat Ali were alone, but they never felt that they need some big organization. They never felt that they need big support. They started the movement on their own. But then it was recognized by whom? Gandhi ji. Go ahead.
Calcutta session of the Congress in September 1920 convinced other leaders of the need to start a non-cooperation movement in support of the Khilafat as well as personal rights.
Underline non-cooperation movement. Next. Bas. So you put the heading in a notebook, Khilafat movement. Whatever you have underlined, you write that points only. You want me to dictate? Write down. I'm so fond of my dictation. Okay, good boy. Write down. Soon after the First World War, British government soon after the First World War, British government continued their repressive policies in India and other colonies. repressive policies in India and in other colonies. The defeat of Ottoman Turk, it is not Ottoman Turkey.
So this is the next point.
Next point. What makes Russia to smile? The defeat of Ottoman Turks spread the rumor that British will sign a humiliating treaty over the kingdom. The defeat of Ottoman Turks sent the rumor that British will be signing a humiliating treaty. If you want the spelling, please ask me. Over the empire. Which empire? Okay, next. According, तो इतना फास्ट क्यों है? थोड़ा स्लो लिख. अभी ट्रीटी में आया भैया. हो गया? कब साइन किया? मैंने तो नहीं साइन किया. Next point. Accordingly, the religious head of Islamic community hyphen Khalif. Is it Khalif or Khalifa given in the volume? Khalifa na? वही लिखो. Volume में एक देता है, textbook में एक देता है. Always follow the textbook. Was not recognized by the British government. Was not recognized by the British government. Full stop. There was an all-round, next point there. Protest and uprisings. All-round protests and uprisings. Against this decision, across the globe, in different countries, globe तो बहुत बड़ा होता है, in different countries. Next. In India, it was Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali. Careful, use the textbook or the volume page. Hyphen डाल के लिखो, popularly known as Ali brothers. Continued this movement by forming a Khilafat committee. This movement by forming a Khilafat committee. Next, during this time, INC and Gandhiji, during this time, INC and Gandhiji felt the need to unite the Muslims under the functioning of INC. Functioning of INC or into the functioning. Under ki jagah par into likho. That will be more proper word. Into the functioning of INC. So, next. In September 1920, at Calcutta session of INC, Gandhiji passed the resolution of 1920 Kolkata session, is it? Resolution of Khilafat movement. डबल इन्वर्टेड कमा में डालना है मालूम है ना, फिर एक कमा आएगा ऐसा. Wait, first you write Khilafat movement like this, then you write full non-cooperation movement. Are you understanding? Again, and फिर इधर लिखो and. You write fully. And demand for Purna Swaraj. Demand for Purna Swaraj. I think if it comes for too much, don't write so lengthy answer. I've given a brief account in my own words. Check and let me know. Any point, any line, any word you want to explain. Shall we? Last line चाहिए. अच्छा वो लिखा नहीं है. Then come down to page number 37 of your volume. First World War, Khilafat and NCM. In that there is a question, not a question, subheading called idea of Satyagraha. Did you see it? Yes. I'm going to read personally, not personally, for you guys, so that you can go quickly and we'll explain also. So first point, Mahatma Gandhi returned to India. So return to India, udhar hyphen डालो लिखो from South Africa. From essay लिखना. What is essay area? Really? So what he was doing in South Africa?
Can you repeat why do we have to write?
In India, to India, na udhar likho from South Africa.
Okay.
Lawyer पढ़ने के लिए तो he gone to London, is it? South Africa में क्या कर रहे थे? Practicing. I went for practicing law, but what else really he was doing there? He fought for the African community, the problem called apartheid. What is apartheid? Discrimination on the basis of your skin color. Even today, African community owe thanks to India and to the great leader called Mahatma Gandhi. You feel any cricket match, if South Africa is out of the World Cup, but if India is there, all Africans support Indians. That is the love for the country called India. In fact, they had the first non-white president. His name was Nelson Mandela. English में शायद उनका chapters भी है ना? So we feel this Nelson Mandela was inside house arrest for not more than for 16 or 18 years. हम लोग 2 साल क्या घर के अंदर बैठा, वो भी कोविड की वजह से वीक बिकम वाइल्ड इनफ. So what is this person has done? He has just followed the footsteps of whom? Mahatma Gandhi. So what is this satyagraha? I will say very simple. Do not hate your enemy. अभी क्या करने का enemy के साथ? Always follow the lines of truth, and truth alone only triumphs. हिंदी में क्या बोलते हैं हम लोग? सत्यमेव जयते. बने वो अलग है. सत्यमेव जयते. I don't know whether how many are watching the news for last 2 days. We have Mr. Raga going to Enforcement Directorate Office. Rahul Gandhi, है ना? And people are shouting, "Satya ka jeet hoga." Satya mein jeet. इतना हंसी आ. Many people don't know why they are shouting and क्या राहुल ने वो भी नहीं माना. हमको 500 रुपए दिया, हमको आने बोला. क्या हो रहा है? इलेक्शन हो रहा है, इसलिए आने. In fact, yesterday I bound to share one video in my Insta where the surname of this fellow is not even Gandhi. Did you watch that? It is Gandhi, because इनका जो great grandpa था उसका नाम था फिरोज शाह Gandhi. He was from Bombay, RC fellow. इंदिरा गांधी ने जिससे शादी किया था. So when he was very up in his freedom movement, he purposely changed his name from Gandhi to Gandhi. So that is how the surname has come. मुझे तो लग रहा है राहुल को पूछना चाहिए. राहुल का ये आपका पीछे जो फिरोज शाह, the person who married Indira Gandhi.
तो इसलिए वो वार्षिक से शादी की थी.
हाँ, that is what. फिरोज शाह ने अपना नाम गांधी से, उनका GANDI है, गांधी नहीं है. उसने अपना नाम इसलिए चेंज किया बिकॉज उसको लगता था कि गांधी बोलने से पूरा पब्लिक उसको इंपॉर्टेंस देगा. गांधी का लहर था. But unfortunately he married this lady, and after a few years he left also because he was a very influential and very dedicated worker of Congress. But abhi Indira Nehru was very rich, है ना, and she made him to make like a ghar jamai. You understand that word? And after this 2 sons, and he left away. And then there's Rajiv and Sanjay Gandhi का और details पता है कि कोई बोलेगा ये पूरा family में गड़बड़ है. And if I say Motilal Nehru was not even an Indian, he was from Pakistan only, and they had a surname of, I can't say the surname, they were Muslims. तो एक बार एक क्वेश्चन में पूछा था, राहुल गांधी क्रिश्चियन, मुस्लिम, हिंदू, इंडियन, मेजॉरिटी लोग ने मुस्लिम में दिखते. Is right. We least bothered what community or religion he comes from. At least have some details about what you are. Like there is one good minister from Congress called Randeep Singh Surjewala. कभी उसका स्पीच सुनना, बहुत influentially स्पीच देता है. पर मुझे तो उसका स्पीच सुन के हंसी आता है. कल वो बोल रहा था कि पाकिस्तान, चाइना हमारे धरती माँ के बीचों बीच खड़ा है और मोदी जी ने उनको उखाड़ के बाहर नहीं फेंका. तो राहुल गांधी अकेला ऐसा लीडर है जिन्होंने ये काम किया. अभी उसी का सजा भुगत रहा है. Look how emphatic is the lines. So when I use the word satyagraha, today you travel to any government offices or any judiciary, गांधी जी का फोटो रहेगा और उसके नीचे लिखा रहेगा. What is that? सत्यमेव जयते. मतलब उसी के नीचे बैठ के हम पूरा दिन सुबह से लेकर रात तक झूठ बोलते रहते. फिर बोलते सर सत्य में, हाँ सर बोलो, बस वही बोलने का और कुछ सत्य नहीं बोलना. Even that customary practice of taking a blessing on that Gita came from foreigners only. This British judiciary जब चलता था, they used to take a oath on Bible. अभी हम बाइबल पे तो नहीं करेगा, अभी गीता ही मिली बेचारी. अभी तक किसी ने भागवत गीता नहीं बोला, बस गीता ही बोला. सर उसको भागवत गीता बोलो सर, वरना हमारी बिल्डिंग में बाजू में रहती है वो बुरी मत है ना. Although do you feel I keep my hand and say whatever I'll say is truth and truth only? उधर ही बोलता है, ये झूठ है. So when I start teaching Satyagraha, I feel like it's just a theoretical aspect. इतना मैं influentially बोल रहा था, एक लड़का बोलता है, सर आप जिंदगी में कितना सच बोला? बोलता मैं ये बार-बार झूठ नहीं बोल सकता कि मैं नहीं बोला. No, we can't be 100%, but then try at least 99.9%. Try to. But Gandhi was one fellow who has idealized his life. I'll show you certain, not today, maybe next day, videos when he was traveling to London. People were waiting to see a glimpse of this ordinary man called Mahatma Gandhi. But then they were making fun of video Sunata Bia. Oh, here comes the tiny little man with the slippers and very ordinary clothes because, oh, you know, English always is a pen. In such winters, this man is walking without any shoes. In fact, so much was the attendance, Gandhiji went inside the hall from the back door. British को एक शॉक हुआ रहेगा, भैया इसका फैन क्लब तो इधर भी है. When he was coming out after that first roundtable, second roundtable conference, people were asking him to talk. In fact, वो video में जब play करेगा, he's sitting in car the front. People are going and saying Gandhi, Gandhi, chila raha. But then they didn't understand what is his ideology. They just want to see. अभी सोचो जो भी ब्रिटिश बंदे ने उसको देखा रहेगा, घर पे जाके क्या बोलेगा? Actually, I saw Gandhi. Not at all a very simple and ordinary man. Correct? So this is the same incident when Swami Vivekananda in 1936-37, correct? Which part of America it was? Houston, is it? Chicago. People laughed at his dress, attire. But then he said, my dear brothers and sisters, I came to spread love and affection to you guys. And the entire hall, that's the biggest hall of those days, Chicago. Thunderous clapping going on for this wonderful man. Okay, even today, I don't know how many of you know this Mr. Sundar Pichai. अगर आपको exactly वो meaning बोलूं, सुंदर is a name, Pichai मतलब in Tamil a beggar. But is he a beggar today? Satyam Nadella. Even the Bose music headset that you listen is a very Indian fellow. He aligned with an American and started the company all the way in America. Today you buy a 5.1 channel sound system of the Bose, minimum cost will be 1.5 to 5 lakhs. उसके सामने Philips लेकर आ रहा 30,000 का system. कोई नहीं खरीदेगा Philips का. So why I'm giving such a big incidence? Because Satyagraha, although found in India, found by our own Bapuji, but now we don't. What is Satyagraha? But look at the foreign. If I tell you the national game of India is hockey, but do you feel audience to hockey? Nobody goes. Is the sponsor going? Koi milta bhi nahi bichara sponsor. But for cricket, bolo. If I tell you this, Disney Hotstar has took the auction of IPL for next 2 or 3 years, 23,000 crores of rupees. Such a whooping amount. और आगे बोलेगा तो 4,000, 5,000, 50,000 crore में खरीदा है, दूसरा कोई कंपनी ने स्पॉन्सर खरीद ली. अरे इंडिया के पास पैसे नहीं है, ये पैसे किधर से आ रहे? And then players like horses or dogs, they are sold. Except the Pakistan cricketers, all the cricketers are waiting. IPL फिर अपना पूरा कर्जा निकल जाए. Don't you think they play their skins and bones apart? उतना पैसा मिलता है. You play 5 World Cup matches and you play 1 season of IPL. The money that you get is same. पैसा है ना? On one side, India is putting a big banner, poverty in India. On the other side, I'm putting a big banner, IPL in India. People will laugh, sir, either poverty or either IPL. A guy who has gone inside the IPL stadium for buying a cricket ticket might have spent 15,000 rupees. Bharat, poverty in India is very high. Inflation very high. भाई तू अंदर क्या करने का? नहीं वो 1500 का टिकट मिला तो मतलब घुस गया. फिर तू क्या बाहर आके भाषण दे रहा है? Correct है? So we always believe the Satyagraha was infused in Gandhiji when he was hardly 9 years old. It was his dad who has taken him to a drama. In those days, drama, no pictures, no televisions. And the drama was of Raja Harishchandra. उसका नाम फिर सत्य हरिश्चंद्र भी पड़ा. A greatest king in Hindu dynasty. But he will never tell a lie, even after the death of his son. The only son, in fact. He loses his kingdom, he loses his money, everything. He works as a security guard outside a graveyard. You know graveyard? And uski wife, uska beta ka body ko lekar bhag kar aati hai. A snake has bitten and we don't have the money. Wo bolte sorry, ye mera duty ka time hai, main nahi aayega. Duty chhod ke. तो शमशान घाट में क्या ड्यूटी है? And ultimately the son dies and it needs to be cremated. तो वो बोलता है सॉरी देवी जी आपको इतना पैसा देना पड़ेगा तभी मैं उस लड़के का डेड बॉडी को क्रिमेट करेगा वरना वो भी नहीं. एंड बेचारे वो उसकी वाइफ जाके सब घर में भीख मांग के पैसे लेकर आती है. ये लो बोलते इसमें छवनी बाकी नहीं और लेकर आओ वरना मैं नहीं करूँ. एंड इट इज अ ड्रामा इज इट. यू शुड वॉच इट एटलीस्ट कभी यूट्यूब में देखना. And this young boy called Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi is watching this drama very carefully. And then the God above is so pleased with this person. He says that you are such a dutiful king. तेरा बेटा का डेथ हो गया, तेरा बीवी जाके भीख मांग के पैसे लेकर आ, फिर भी तो अलग नहीं कर. So that duty comes first. Correct? And then the God gives back everything. But then we feel one thing what he has infused in that young boy, always follow the lines of truth. Because you and me start hating a person, no issues. You and me start killing a person, big issues. The revolutionaries who are going to join INC, Gandhiji used to say you are only cutting the branches of a tree. Understand branches? एक ब्रांच काटो दूसरा ब्रांच निकल के आएगा. हाँ, अगर आप इस ऑफिसर को मारेगा लंदन से और एक नया ऑफिसर आएगा. Why don't you shake the roots? But हमारे पास उतना पेशेंस नहीं. रूट्स गिरने तक हम वेट नहीं कर सकते. He said if we give you one slap on the one cheek, so the another. कभी आप लोगों ने ट्राई किया? सर उसका हाथ तोड़ दो क्या? चलिए मम्मी या पापा वो भी नहीं, हमारे फंडामेंटल राइट्स है. मतलब कितना उनमें वो पेशेंस रहेगा. He said love your enemy, convince him, and once he is convinced, once he moves out of India, the whole government will move out. Although it is a very, very slow process, but then are you not finding the solution once and for all? Yes. Because now also we take medicines, is it, for some headache and cold and flu? Normally we take allopathic medicine. You understand what is allopathy? Na? Quick relief. But quick auric symptoms भी आएगा साथ में. But Indian Ayurveda 3 महीना खाना पड़ेगा सिर्फ एक नॉस्टल से फ्लो होने के. तो 6 महीना भी खाना पड़ेगा. But फिर जाके थोड़ा सा 5% आपको ठीक होगा. But then permanent solution. But do you think we but do you think we have those that much of a quick action is sir 600 mg 800 भी है खाओ. मैं भी ऐसे करता था, अभी थोड़ा सा कम किया. So here we don't want 600 or 400 mg. We want a small dose, but then give it a permanent solution. So when I'm going to teach you Satyagraha, he is only teaching only one thing. What is that? Follow the lines of the truth. And the next important, complete non-violence. When I teach you this non-cooperation movement, he said, do not cooperate with the British government. If you are cooperating with the British government, you are cooperating with the devil. You understand devil? You understand? कैसे कैसे मुझे तो नहीं कौन है डिस्कशन हाँ Lucifer's what is it? If you do not cooperate, this government will not run. Because when you are looking at crime right in front of your eyes, बोलते मेरा क्या काम है इसमें मैं In fact, you are the most sinner than the person who is committing the crime. Is it so? Yes. At least raise your voice. नहीं सर सब लोग करा था सर मेरा काम सब लोग ने नहीं किया तूने किया क्या सर मैंने नहीं So we always believe you go forward, automatically the people will follow. What do you think city में ऐसा होता है? कुछ नहीं होता सब अपना अपना काम चलाते. So there's a beautiful poem in English in I think 10th standard state board if you remember, The Night of the Scorpion. You know, I really love that poem to be explained. And the poet name also I remember Nizam Ezekiel. रात में एक स्कॉर्पियन एक लेडी को काट देता है but people come rows and rows and rows. It's a village like city. Do you think in city man? Good. He loves. And I really love the poem of William Wordsworth also. A poem called Solitary Reaper. You always believe only one thing, that your ears and eyes and brain are quite connected. Correct? In fact, science ने prove किया अगर आप एक person के साथ सिर्फ 28 seconds, not even 1 minute, अगर आप spend कर लेते हैं, then your brain and your memory is connected with him or her. But is it so happening in our life? Stay with our parents generation. पूरा 3 घंटे का लेक्चर लेते हो ये कब जाएगा क्या है ना हम लोग ने अपना माइंड को वैसे ही ये बोला है every morning you say only one thing yesterday was a very good day today will be my best सर बोलने से काम हो जाएगा अरे बोल के तो देख yesterday I couldn't complete my daily work but today I will complete बोलने से काम हो जाएगा बोलो if I say out of a bunch of boys and 2 girls don't you like any good words said about you ऐसा कोई है सर मेरे बारे में कुछ अच्छा नहीं बोले कैसा कोई है क्या सबको अच्छा लगता I said today you are looking handsome you are looking beautiful भले वो सामने एक्सप्रेस नहीं करेगा but your mind and your heart want some beautiful things to be said दूसरा बोलने से अगर इतना इफेक्ट होता है आप खुद बोला करो दिन में 2 या 3 बार बोलो I am the brightest person. I am a very hard-working person. I am a most beautiful person. It's just हफ्ते में 7 दिन बोल लो हफ्ते में 7 दिन होता है पर देखो automatically your mind and body works. I saw a movie with a very bright nature and I said coming out of the movie wonderful movie. Same movie आप देखने जाओ घर में झगड़ा वगड़ा करके मम्मी नहीं छोड़ा आप जाके वो मूवी देखा मूवी अच्छा है बट बकवास मूवी I don't like it. ऐसा क्या मूवी में दोनों तो सेम ही है आपका माइंडसेट अलग था और मेरा माइंडसेट अलग इज इट ओके थैंक यू हे माधव कम बैक
Yes.
थैंक यू आई वाज वंडरफुली नरेटिंग सम गुड थिंग्स
Sir, can you unmute?
फिर बोलना आधा लेक्चर हो गया, अभी स्लोली बोलना। माधव अरोड़ा, इतना देर में इधर इन्फ्लुएंशियली बोला, तूने मिस किया? So one thing to be understood, that is a truth and truth alone. Okay, let's proceed. Without seeking vengeance or being aggressive, open bracket, a satyagrahi could win the battle through, underline, non-violence. I will be skipping certain lines. Don't say who. This could be done, underline, by appealing the conscience of the oppressor. Yeah, how do you explain the word conscience? Madhav, bata conscience ka meaning hai? 15 मिनट तो लेक्चर में गया और चुपचाप बैठा है। What is conscience? अंतरात्मा. Every person has a good and a bad inside him. Normally, who is victorious? The bad, the evil. Why not good? हाँ सर, कभी कभी बेचारा आता है, फिर हम लोग उसको रोज वाटर डाल के दबा देते हैं, चुप बैठ। Even in me also. So when I try to trigger your inner conscience, you will feel, wow, क्या सर ने लेक्चर दिया, टॉपिक छोड़ दिया और ही कुछ बड़ा था। But at least that one day you feel, oh, from today onwards, at least let me follow. It's like donation of the eyes. Aishwarya Rai used to be presented in the national network channel, and those days Aishwarya Rai used to have that blue color eyeballs, and people used to say, what a beauty. फिर किसी ने ऐसा भी ऐड किया, बोला only for 2 minutes to close your eyes and walk within your own house, forget about outside. भैया ना आधे से ज्यादा आर्टिफैक्ट्स तोड़ दिया, मत तोड़ दिया, ये तोड़ दिया, सिर्फ 2 मिनट आप नहीं चल सकते। Means imagine the person who is without eyes. तो तुरंत चलो, हाँ सर फिर क्या करना, जल्दी जाओ सर, डोनेट करके आओ। बोले तू वो मैं नहीं करेगा, तू कर। Means what? Whatever Gandhi ji has taught, he himself has practiced in his life. I'll tell you, when that RTC roundtable conference, he went to London, he did not sit in the table. Neither he used the fork and the spoon to eat. He sat down on the ground and he was eating with his hand. You know, British people, drop. Huh? And Gandhi ji said, the spoon that I am using, nobody else can use the spoon. British people, ye kaun sa naya spoon? Well, they're my fingers. And the place where you are sitting, you are rich and wealthy. But my people are poor. So I will sit down. Many people in that video, when I show you next time, they were making fun of his breast. And a half nude fellow. Because he said, itna hi dress bacha hai hamare paas. All thanks to your government only. Correct? Eh? So symbolically, he is hitting the government. Always in our English language, we say silence is golden. Are we? Bas tum niklo yahan se, fir silence ka band ho jata hai. So this is what he is saying. Always work towards the truth. People, including the oppressor, had to be persuaded to see the truth instead of being forced to accept the truth through the use of violence. By this struggle, open bracket, truth was bound to be ultimately triumph. Udhar likho, Hindi ya English mein likho. Satyameva jayate. I'll write that word. In no other branch I had given such a wonderful explanation. I don't know why for you to use. Satyameva jayate. So this is the slogan that appears in almost every government buildings in our India, is it? Next. Mahatma Gandhi believed in, underline, dharma of non-violence. Let us go to the page number 38. You silently read that source and then come back to me. तो Roller Act explain करेगा, Jallianwala Bagh explain करेगा मैं. I'll get you that video also. Since I'm talking so much about our great leader, and पहले जाके राहुल गांधी को ये history सिखाने का. He was in London. Did I show you that video? How beautifully he was making fun of India. उसने ये बोला था कि पूरा इंडिया में केरोसिन फैला हुआ है और कभी भी आग लग सकता है. अभी आग उसी का पिछवाड़े में लगा है. बता कुछ भी बोलता है. He is a very smart fellow. हाँ? पिछले 3 दिन से अपना ऑफिसर लोग को उल्लू बना रहा है. कॉमेडी दिखता है बट कॉमेडियन है नहीं. This is the video. माधव अरोरा.
Yes, sir.
नेक्स्ट टाइम से पहले ही बोलते हैं कि वीडियो में आवाज नहीं है, ये नहीं है, कुछ भी नहीं बोलता है.
सर दिख नहीं रहा वीडियो.
मैंने शेयर ही नहीं किया. अभी दिख रहा है?
हाँ सर. सर आज का आपने शेयर नहीं किया.
हाँ हाँ. साउंड भी शेयर करना पड़ेगा भाई साहब आपके लिए. आप घर बैठे बैठे बहुत अच्छे से एंजॉय कर रहे हो.
Here he is at last, the mystery man of India. Our first glimpse as the Rajputana came alongside at Marseille. And there's a woman of whom you've probably all read, but never seen in a picture. Miss Madeline Slade, the English daughter of an admiral, who now prefers to be known as Malara Ben. She's one of Mr. Gandhi's most devout disciples. She's leading the way ashore now, and just behind her comes Mr. Gandhi, dressed as he said he would be, in just his loincloth, even in the chilly climes of Europe. And he's carrying with him his pots and pans, which he declared at the customs. He was trotted around Marseille to several receptions and made 1 or 2 speeches which rather frightened the French authorities. But when asked to speak into the sound film microphone, he said, "I think not." And so we go on our way to England.
This is the ship on which.
Well, here we are at Folkestone, with the Biarritz coming alongside, and as Gandhi said, in proper English weather, pouring rain and bitterly cold. Miss Slade was the first ashore to tend to the luggage, that is, the goat's milk, etc. She was followed by Gandhi's son, and then came the little man, still scantily clad, but with an extremely wet blanket around his tiny frame. I'm sure he must have been frozen. We were in thick overcoats. He picked his way through the puddles along the quay side, and he was wearing sandals, by the way, to the waiting motor car, for he decided that he'd rather go up to London by road. He insisted on sitting up in the front seat with the driver. He said that he could see better that way. So he tucked himself in, and so off to London, whilst his followers went by the boat train. In town, quite a lot of people had waited in the pouring rain outside the Friends Meeting House on the Euston Road to see what he really looked like. But at first they were quite disappointed, because he went in the back way. But shortly afterwards he left by the front way. And then they really did see quite a lot of him, even his knees. No, he won't speak into the microphone. And so to his poplar home, where we leave this bizarre little man, whose coming has caused so much comment, complete with loincloth, spinning wheel and goat's milk, feeling sure that he cannot complain of his reception or the publicity he has received, from which, by the way, we always understood that he shrank.
Half the crowd is making fun of him. But look at his, beautiful smile and the way he was, greeted.
There is an indefinable, mysterious power that pervades everything. I feel it, though I do not see it. It is this unseen power which makes itself felt, yet defies all proof, because it is so unlike all that I perceive through my senses. It transcends the senses, but it is possible to reason out the existence of God to a limited extent. Even in ordinary affairs, we know that people do not know who rules or why and how he rules. And yet they know that there is a power that certainly rules. In my tour last year in Mysore, I met many poor villagers, and I found upon inquiry that they did not know who ruled Mysore. They simply said, some god ruled it. If the knowledge of these poor people was so limited about their ruler, I, who am infinitely lesser in respect to God than they to their ruler, need not be surprised if I do not realize the presence of God, the King of Kings. Nevertheless, I do feel, as the poor villagers felt about Mysore, that there is orderliness in the universe. There is an unalterable law governing everything and every being that exists or lives. It is not a blind law, for no blind law can govern the conduct of living beings. And thanks to the marvelous researches of Sir J.C. Bose, it can now be proved that even matter is life. That law, then, which governs all life is God. Law and the lawgiver are one. I may not deny the law or the lawgiver because I know so little about it or him. Just as my denial or ignorance of the existence of an earthly power will avail me nothing, even so my denial of God and his law will not liberate me from its operation, whereas humble and mute acceptance of divine authority makes life's journey easier, even as the acceptance of earthly rule makes life under it easier. I do dimly perceive that whilst everything around me is ever changing, ever dying, there is underlying all that change a living power that is changeless, that holds all together, that creates, dissolves, and recreates. That informing power of spirit is God, and since nothing else that I see merely through the senses can or will persist, he alone is. And is this power benevolent or malevolent? I see it as purely benevolent, for I can see that in the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists. In the midst of darkness, light persists. Hence I gather that God is life, truth, light. He is love. He is the supreme good. But he is no God who merely satisfies the intellect, if he ever does. God, to be God, must rule the heart and transform it. He must express himself in every smallest act of his votary. This can only be done through a definite realization, more real than the five senses can ever produce. Sense perceptions can be, and often are, false and deceptive, however real they may appear to us. Where there is realization outside the senses, it is infallible. It is proved not by extraneous evidence, but in the transformed conduct and character of those who have felt the real presence of God within. Such testimony is to be found in the experiences of an unbroken line of prophets and sages in all countries and climes. To reject this evidence is to deny oneself. This realization is preceded by an immovable faith. He who would, in his own person, test the fact of God's presence can do so by a living faith. And since faith itself cannot be proved by extraneous evidence, the safest course is to believe in the moral government of the world and therefore in the supremacy of the moral law, the law of truth and love. Exercise of faith will be the safest where there is a clear determination summarily to reject all that is contrary to truth and love. I confess that I have no argument to convince through reason. Faith transcends reason. All I can advise is not to attempt the impossible.
So whether we understand the language or the words that he is speaking, but one thing is for sure. What is he trying to invoke in every Indian? The Satyagraha, the way he carried India on his mind and body. In fact, if you read books of Mahatma Gandhi, he has written that he wants to cherish the freedom even after the long freedom movement is coming to an end. But all thanks to Nathuram Godse. मतलब गांधी जी को एक साल भी आगे वो बोलता था कि रेड फोर्ट में नेशनल फ्लैग ट्राई कलर होने के लिए हम पूरा जिंदगी दिया है. So as long as I am alive, I'll be watching that, national flag unfold in that red fort. But that was other story. Okay, let's proceed. In page number 40, again, it is non-cooperation movement. So put the heading in your notebook, non-cooperation movement. Shall I give directly the points and then we will go ahead? Right, point number 1. So point number 1 will. Gandhiji in his famous book. It's all from the volume, so you can keep your volume side by side. Gandhiji in his famous book, Hind Swaraj, 1909, 1909. Famous book, Hind Swaraj, 09. Declared that.
So can you repeat?
Gandhiji in his famous book, Hind Swaraj, declared that the British government would survive, would, not will.
So can you repeat that here?
British government would survive only with the cooperation of Indians. Only with the cooperation of Indians. Second point. So, with the cooperation of Indians. So, if Indians refuse their cooperation. So if Indians refused their cooperation, British government cannot survive more than a year. British government cannot survive more than a year. Underline cannot survive. Next. Gandhiji proposed. You can get capital G. You might be tired. Gandhiji proposed the NCM. What is NCM? Non-cooperation movement only. फिर CDM में use करेगा बार-बार. What is CDM? एक मिनट. What is CDM? तुमको ही बोलना पड़ेगा. बोलो. Civil disobedience movement. अभी हम लोग NCM में ही. अभी तक CDM में गए नहीं. NCM will unfold in stages. NCM will unfold in stages. Will unfold in stages. oh my dear sweet girls and boys, will unfold in stages. मतलब एक साथ नहीं आएगा बैंग में, ठीक है? So let us write point 1, point 2, point 3, or if you want, you can write stage 1, stage 2 also. What are you prefer? Are you understanding? फिर इसको stage 2 करने का, फिर इसको stage 3 करने का, ऐसा भी लिख सकता है. So let us write stage 1. Surrender of government titles. Surrender of government titles. And boycott of services in army, police, and boycott of services in army, police, court, vakil and court.
Sir, what is the boycott of?
Boycott of services in army, police, courts, and also boycott of foreign goods. That is stage 1. Foreign goods. Sometimes I pity myself. Ask why? Nobody will ask. Now here we have one fellow called, what's your name? I forgot. And here we have Madhav. You are just less, he is very more. पूरा point खत्म. ए माधव मेरा आवाज वहां तक नहीं पहुंचता है.
जो पहुंचता है मिस हो जाता है सर.
हाँ तू ऐसे ही मिस हो जाता है. वो एक सीरियल चलता है मालूम है हिंदी में. आई हैव नेवर वॉच एनी सीरियल्स एट ऑल. मेरी आवाज सुनो. अभी सुनेगा. तो भी बोलो नहीं. अभी मैं लेक्चर स्टार्ट करने से पहले माधव तेरे लिए बोलूंगा मेरी आवाज सुनो. So what is your answer, man? What will be your answer?
Yes, sir.
हाँ सुन रहा. ना मतलब you listen only that word only. मेरी आवाज सुनो. सर बाकी सब है ना ट्रैक हो गया सर. दोबारा बोलो. क्या? ओए अजीम प्रेम जी. He is thinking sir indirectly मुझे बोल रहे हैं उसको. Don't worry, don't worry. मैं भी ऐसी था तेरे जैसे. मतलब ऐसा नहीं था. चलिए let's proceed. देखो one thing I'll tell you, when I'm dictating notes, Madhav and all, first पहले listen and put it in your ears and brain and then start writing. I have seen 90% students what they do, दो words सुना पहले वो लिखेंगे. हाँ रुको और फिर अरे पहले पूरा सुनो. 3 things very important. क्या है? Be a good listener and good memorize करो, then good writer. हमारा बच्चा पहला राइटिंग पहला करता है, लिसन बाद में करता है, मेमोराइज होती है. क्या भूल क्या रहा है? पूरा उल्टा पुल्टा चल रहा है ना. आई रिमेंबर जालियनवाला बाग, which I've been teaching you now with a wonderful video also. I think 8th standard था. I was I'm very sure 8th standard. Out of 10 marks for that answer I got 8 marks. Why? CBSE में ही था मैं, ICSE तो बाद में गया मैं. I remember like you guys count the pages na. I was preparing for history exam and my madam given me a 4.5 page answer for Jallianwala Bagh answer. मैं ऐसा बार-बार आंसर क्या करें और मैं पढ़ा ही नहीं, निकल गया. and मेरा मैम ने बोला आएगा, बोला आया भी, अभी करेगा क्या? 4.5 जैसे आप लोग भी ना बताइए मैम को है ना दूसरा कुछ काम नहीं. 4.5 pages. But I remembered one thing. During my school and college days, I will be attending the lecture means keenly listening. Not even one point of distraction here and there. So whatever my madam has explained, I wrote exactly the same thing without learning the answer. And बड़ाई नहीं करने का, फिर भी थोड़ा सा करूँगा. My ma'am told in front of the class, Alakesh has written a beautiful answer. He is the only boy who has got 8 marks out of 10. कैसे लर्निंग झूठ मत बोलो. Total, I remember SST was my favorite, SST and English. I used to top it. थोड़ा सा डिप होता था मैथ में and science also good. मैथ में मेरा algebra से ज्यादा मेरा geometry strong रहता था. 6 marks का construction मतलब 6 marks मिलेगा ही मिलेगा. Not even 1 point. You know parallelogram with 1 degree here, 1 angle there. वो भी कर लेता था. मेन प्रॉब्लम ट्रिग्नोमेट्री में आके फंस जाता था. साइन कोसेक कॉट थीटा ये, क्योंकि मेरा मैम ने भी ऐसे ही सीखा. So why the narration I'm saying, listen very carefully. When you become a keen listener ना, automatically your brain क्या हो गया तुझे? हैमर दूं? चल ठीक. माधव समझा? समझा क्या माधव को? अरे बोलना मुंह खोल के.
Yes, sir.
क्या समझा?
सर आप SST में अच्छे.
चलिए लेट्स प्रोसीड. अभी ये मुश्किल नहीं आएगा ना, पहले लिसन करो. आई रिपीट वन सेंटेंस 3 टाइम्स. इनफैक्ट मेरा घर पे मेरा माँ बोलते एक लाइन को 15 बार क्यों बोलता है, बोले यही मेरा काम है दिन रात होती. इवन व्हेन आई एम फाइटिंग विद हर ना, एक ही लाइन को मैं बोलते ही जाएगा. सिर्फ लेक्चर खत्म हो गया बैठ. बोला हाँ ठीक है. चलिए लेट्स प्रोसीड. व्हाट आई वाज गिविंग द नोट्स. स्टेज 2. भूल गए क्या करने का. इधर तो नहीं दिया. आई हैव टू गिव यू स्वराज स्वदेशी. कंप्लीट डिमांड फॉर द अटेनमेंट ऑफ पूर्ण स्वराज. पुट दैट वर्ड इनटू सिंगल इनवर्टेड कॉमा. पूर्ण स्वराज. शी इज कवरिंग द बुक. पूर्ण स्वराज. पूर्ण स्वराज मत लिख दो. This is the word Purna Swaraj. Purna Swaraj. Next. दे रहा ना इधर. Boycotting the British-run schools.
So this is also stage 2.
Stage 3.
Okay.
Stage 2 था ना Madhav.
Yes.
Boycotting the British-run schools and attending.
So boycotting the
British-run schools and attending the Indian schools. Stage 4. Giving importance to national education. ये बताता हूँ क्या होता है. Giving importance to national education hyphen rediscovering.
We're giving importance to
national education. The technical issues है या mental issues है पता नहीं. रुक जा, तो अभी दूसरा है. Rediscovering the national education hyphen rediscovering the glorious past. पूरा लिख देता हूँ, बोल के करता हूँ. I'm not a school teacher for all this. Glorious past of Indian history. Now read all that and tell me which point you want me to explain of Indian history. Oh, wonderful. I was expecting you only to ask me. As long as Britishers were ruling India, they made Indians realize only one thing. What is that? You are inferior people. You are born to be slaves. You do not have any history at all. अगर शायद ब्रिटिश अभी आके बोलता हमारा बच्चा हिस्ट्री नहीं है, वेरी गुड सर, वैसे भी मुझे पसंद नहीं, ज्योग्राफी पढ़ता. But then the social reformers said India was a golden nightingale. Correct? Forget about the walls. The entire temple was constructed pure gold. People used to have lunch and dinner with more than 36 variety of sabji. Every day, gold plates. Gold was so rich, people do not even tend to pick up एक ही gold है, जाने तो पड़े अपने को. So ये सब सच था या आप ऐसे ही झूठ बोल? To us. But then India was looted when this Ghaznavi ruler started. Who's this Ghaznavi? It is Muhammad Ghazni and Gauri. It was the two Chinese travelers who have written the book about Indian richness. Whoever have read that book, they wanted to taste the richness of it. आप मैं अगर बिलीव नहीं करेगा तो गजनी का आप ऑनलाइन में जाके देखना. He has raided India 17 and a half times. In fact, he lost one his arm, and उसमें किसी ने वो भी लिखा कि उसका एक पैर भी कट जाता. फिर भी भाई साहब पोलियो के साथ आके लूट के जाते हैं. सोचो उसका ये देखो, greed. Seriously, greed only. If I tell you certain temples, even today, if you go to certain parts of North India, they were being demolished not once or twice, not more than 9 times. But even that 9 times the temple was reconstructed. So, and constructed every year with same richness. So that's why some people from Afghanistan or Pakistan says we have donated Taj Mahal, we have donated Qutub Minar. No, leke ja. Kya? Leke jana to donate kya na leke ja humko nahi chahiye. Kya mazak kar raha hai? Tu bhi kya mazak? कुतुब मीनार क्या तेरा घर से उठा के लेकर आ बना इधर ही है कि नहीं? If they have brought money with them and then they constructed, we are happy. किसने लाया? If I tell you Akbar was taking birth when Ibrahim Lodi has taken the kingdom from Babur and Humayun, वो बेचारा तो जंगल में पैदा होता है Akbar, and he becomes the king of the entire country when he is not even 13 years. Akbar का birth struggle बहुत काफी बड़ा है. But then Akbar has not made one good religion called Aini Akbari, Dini Lahi. A language, a religion combining the good principles of Hindus and Muslims to impress the Rajput people. In fact, they married the Rajput girls just to keep Rajputs little bit away from them.
But religion is
No. वो तो उसका टाइम पे उसने बनाया. अभी कौन सा religion? So why I'm giving all this thing is, he asked me, sir, what is national heritage? If I say Australia is only 150 years old, Australia, but Indian history is 5,000 years old. 5,000. Many people say Australia is having all richness because abhi to bana continent. But they say once again the world might come to an end, and again the period that we have seen in history might come back, but only in India. You sir, that is the gift that India is getting. This Kashmiriyat करके जो चिल्लाता है उनको पकड़ के पूछो. कश्मीर का नाम ही हरण्य कश्यप के ऊपर ही रखा है. The greatest saint of India. People used to go to Kashmir to attend him, and उनका death के बाद ही उसको कश्मीर रखा. And to be very frank, the Kashmir girls were very beautiful. Even now also, I haven't gone there anyway to see them. So these Pakistanis used to come and get married here and settle here only. This is how the community slowly and steadily increased. 95% were Hindus. Exactly opposite of them. और बोलते कश्मीर हमारा, right? Sorry to say, there are so many Indians जिसका सरनेम आज भी हिंदू सरनेम है, but वो मुस्लिम और क्रिश्चियन है. मतलब ये कौन सा रिलीजन है? हाँ, they use the surname. हाँ, दिखा है ना, वो भट्ट वगैरह सब इंडियन सरनेम ही है, but अपने आप को मुस्लिम बोलता है. I've seen certain Christian ladies टीका लगाती है, गजरा लगा के फिर चर्च में घुसती है. ये कौन सा क्रिश्चियन भाई? And Christians are not wearing all that stuff. But नहीं sir, हमारा है ना, Jesus है ना बोला, मतलब कब बोला? In fact, there is a country called Israel which doesn't believe what? That Lord Jesus has taken birth. वो बोलते ये तो story है. एक सर पूरा religion में confusion. And if you watch that movie, did I not say Da Vinci Code, in which he has proven to the world Jesus was an ordinary man. When he was given the death sentence, the exile, there's a lady who's standing little bit away and she's pregnant. और उसने prove किया कि that lady is the wife of Jesus, and she gives birth to a girl child, and वो girl child के थ्रू अभी भी उनका generation चालू है, and ये वैटिकन वाले उसका फैमिली को बिना बोले खत्म कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि लोग बाहर आके बोलना नहीं चाहिए कि हम लोग का ग्रेट ग्रेट ग्रैंडफादर जीसस था, वरना तो फिर पूरा स्टोरी उल्टा हो जाएगा. So look, there is so confusion in the religion at all. So, but then the Indian history is one of the best history. अगर आपको आज मैं बोलूं सर आज आपके घर में डिनर में गोल्ड प्लेट में डिनर है, वो भी 36, रुको सर लेक्चर बाद में, अभी मैं जब तक प्लेट गया और सब्जी गया, सीधा हम गोल्ड का दुकान में जाएगा, कितना है गोल्ड, 2 ग्लास, मम्मी जल्दी लेकर आ जा. Correct, but in every house gold plate, in every shop there is gold plate. Do you think then people will value? मेरे पास भी है, रख लेते हैं. ये मैंने आरे घर पे पढ़ा है. So this is what the richness of the country. Ashoka the Great was trading with Russia. In fact, I can tell you, during the British time, the Britishers did not allow Indian traders to go to London for trading. बोलता था कि शिप का फेयर बढ़ा देता था. And to be very frank with you, more than 2 or 3 ships were created by Indians. And उन्होंने बोला ये शिप में हम लोग 1 रुपया नहीं लेंगे, फ्री में जाओ लंदन. Look at the audacity of the Indians. उन्होंने बोला शिप हमारा है और हमारा पूरा पब्लिक इसमें जाएगा, फ्री में जाएगा, 1 रुपया नहीं लेगा. Don't you think the British will get agitated? यार हम लोग इधर इतना महंगा कर रहे हैं और ये कि फ्री में लेके चल लंदन में. They made the IAS or ICS exam in London. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose passed the exam in London only. They reduced the age. पहला बोला था 21 years के ऊपर रहेगा, तो अभी बोला 18. So many Indians went to London to write the exam and passed out. M.G. Ranade, he was a judge. Netaji was offered a British job. उसने बोला नहीं मुझे नहीं चाहिए, बस मुझे qualification चाहिए था, मैंने लिया. So who is more intelligent? Even today, you go to any part of the foreign world, you will feel one Indian is at the topmost place. In fact, I also met with some people. They said we are very much afraid of you guys. मैंने बोला ऐसा क्या हमसे डरता है? नहीं ये एक इंडियन है ना, हम 100 पर भारी पड़ते. You are so brilliant man. जरूरत से ज्यादा क्वालिफिकेशन को पता है कि हमको टेंशन आता है, इतना पढ़ के तू इधर क्यों आया? लेकिन तुझे कुछ गड़बड़ है. हम तो 12th भी पास नहीं होते. अमेरिकन का वही नेचर. In American university, Chinese and Indians are toppers. Why? उनका lifestyle वैसा गंदा है. Because बच्चा 9th 7th तो दूर की बात है, बचपन से वो सारा चीज देख लेता है, कर लेता है, जब 20-25 की बात बच्चा को बोलता है. So the America उसलिए अभी अमेरिका में पड़ रही है प्रॉब्लम. But Indians go there, Chinese go there, Japanese hard work, study. So we always believe India had a very proud history. ये कौन बताएगा आपको? British. So thank you. So we always believe these national heritage. हम आपको बताते तो आपको लगता है साहब इतना बड़ा बड़ा फेंकता है, इसका कुछ एविडेंस भी है? बोला हाँ, books are written. You go to any part of North India, the temple history is written. Constructed by Rajaraja Chola, the temple still there. If you see one size of the bell of a temple, you can't lift it by any lift, the crane. उतना बड़ा है, फिर ये इतना हाइट में पहुंच गए सर. That is the art and architecture of India. You go to a place called Tanjore in Tamil Nadu, a big stone worth I think 8 or 9 tons has reached to the top of the temple.
Sir, there's some history that some people they made an inclined plane and with elephants and people they pushed it on top of the temple.
Correct. अभी तक people को मालूम नहीं पड़ा कि ये इतना बड़ा stone ऊपर गया कैसे रहेगा. And you go to Madurai Meenakshi temple, that the goddess have a one nut, you know nut, and there's one particular diamond. They wear it only on special days only. And वो diamond का value अभी तक किसी ने लगाया नहीं. उतना costly diamond है. So this is what Indian history. Not any part. Every part of India has rich history. हम लोग छुट्टी में इधर दुबई शॉपिंग इधर, पहले इंडिया घूमो, और इंडिया घूमते घूमते भी आपका आधा जिंदगी निकल जाएगा, उतना रिच है. ये सब किसके बाद? ब्रिटिश ने 200 साल लूटा, फिर गजनी गौरी ने वो कितना लूटा, फिर भी बचा है इंडिया. So this is the rich tradition. That is what national education. Is it okay? Let's proceed with the next para. Today I'm explaining more and giving less notes. Okay, but my chapter is remaining. And now put the heading Rowlatt Act. The Rowlatt Act. Yes, ma'am. What happened? तेरे पास वॉल्यूम है ना बाजू में? Such a charming boy. The Rowlatt Act. Write down. I'll start explaining and then keep talking. Oof. Point number 1. British government after the First World War gave a few more seats. British government after the First World War gave a few more seats to the Indians. To the Indians in the parliament. Next point. But the complete independence was still a myth. You understand what is a myth? हाँ, मतलब वो तो एक अभी भी बेचारा ड्रीम ही था इंडियंस के लिए. Was still a myth. Next.
Sir, the complete independence
Was a myth, MYTH. So the Indians started. Next point. So the Indians started strong agitations and demands, or protest like demands. Strong agitations and protest. Agitations and protests. Meaning or spelling? Oh my God. Are you understanding this spelling? Here, and this is that spelling. All over India, demanding Swaraj. All over India, demanding Swaraj. You guys are also tired of hustling. ये खत्म करें तब छोड़ दूं, ऐसे भी उतना ही टाइम है. British government passed, next point, British government passed, put double inverted comma, Rowlatt Act to suppress this movement. Passed Rowlatt Act to suppress this movement. Now next. Movement. Now you write effect of the Rowlatt Act. Effects. Point number 1. इफेक्ट के जगह पर उधर लिखो, इफेक्ट लिख दिया. कैसे चेंज? Rowlatt Act introduced complete ban on procession. You understand procession? PROCESSION. Public rally or gathering. Public rally or any gatherings. Next. Police can arrest. Next point. Police can arrest the protesters and can be imprisoned. And you understand, imprison, jail. Imprison, you write jail for next 2 years. Hyphen, without any trial. Can be imprisoned for next 2 years without any trial. What is trial? मतलब पुलिस पकड़ेगा सीधा punishment देगा, कोर्ट में नहीं लेके जाएगा. Next. So, SO. So. कभी-कभी मुझे अच्छा लगता है. Wide spread rallies, strikes in railway tracks, and workshops were organized. That rallies in workshops were organized. Next.
Rallies in workshop.
Were organized on 10th April 1919. What? Next one. Police on 10th April 1919. Police under the leadership of General Dyer. You remember which incident we are doing? Very good. Anyone visited this place at least anytime? Please go. मैंने भी नहीं गया.
Under the leadership of.
उधर लिखा है. बस only for you I have it. Fired at the unarmed people. Fired at the unarmed people in Jallianwala Bagh, Amritsar. Be careful with the spelling Jallianwala. It is there in the book. If you need, I'll give it. Jallianwala Bagh at Amritsar. Next and the last point. Several citizens, several Indians in fact, lost their lives and a nationwide uproar. You understand uproar? Against this inhuman act. Inhuman act. Change the para. Hence, the most outrageous. You understand outrageous? Yes. Impact of this act was the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. आप JBM लिख दें. JBM मतलब आजकल जमनालाल बजाज मैनेजमेंट कॉलेज. Thank you. I'll see you in my next class.
So can you repeat the stage 2 once?
Uproar against the such inhuman act.
No, sir. Sir, the stage 2.
So stage 2. A stage 2 क्या दिया है मैंने?
Complete demand for the attaining of
Complete demand for the attainment of Purna Swaraj. Hey, listen, there are certain questions that you can keep it in. I have checked thoroughly all the books of my ICSE 10th standard students. Similarly, कर ले मम्मी भी चल नहीं बात कर ले पेज नंबर 71 अच्छा आप लोग रख दो मैं ऐसे ही बोल देता हूँ यू रिमेंबर क्वेश्चन नंबर 1 2 3 4 and 5 so I am asking worksheet question number 1 to 5 Madhav you also
Yes, sir.
you need to solve.
This chapter is not there for the test.
I'll tell them since I have not completed the remove only economics chapter will be there. Since that is completed, na?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, don't worry. Good night, Madhav.
Thank you, sir. Bye.